It is 7:30, so we'll start. As you can see, I'm chairing the meeting tonight. Hopefully, you'll be able to hear me tonight. Councillor Strike is ill, and we wish him all the best. I too would like to welcome the new councillors. Some have been in the hot seat before, others haven't, but I hope you provide a constructive contribution to the council. I hope this evening will be relatively quick, as it does overlap with another meeting which I'm supposed to attend to. However, I will move to public questions. So, are there any questions from the... Yes.
I propose that the council considers correspondence received from Broadoak Community Investments dated the 16th of February as urgent business. For noting at this meeting, the item was received after the agenda was published and may have governance implications. I'd like to propose that, and I wonder if someone would second that formally.
What is the...
So I'd like to just make a statement. The council notes receipt of correspondence from Broadoak Community Investments, the CIC, dated the 16th of February.
Yeah.
As this item was not included on the agenda, which was published on the 20th of February, no decision will be taken at this meeting. At this stage, the council is not arranging a meeting with the CIC nor filling the current vacancy on the CIC board. The matter to be considered at a future meeting following the conclusion of the current re-election period. The council notes that previous motions regarding the CIC were passed during the re-election period in October 2025. And that's what I would like noted.
Thank you. We'll note that and check its validity. Thank you. Public questions then. Have we had any questions from the public that need answering?
Just one who, so Chris Roberts asked for the exact monetary amounts of the increase limit. For Band A, so this is annually in the parish council section, Band A it's an additional £80.60. For Band B it's an additional £94.04. For Band C it's an additional £107.47. For Band D it's an additional £120.91. Band E it's an additional £147.78. For F it's £174.65. For G it's £201.51. And for H it's £241.82. That's the only question.
Okay, are there any follow-ups to that? The only thing I would say is those are provisional amounts. Obviously, it's
So that's according to the calculator that UDC has given me.
yeah.
I have got a follow-up question. Those increases are quite sizable. I think a figure was mentioned at parish council meeting of circa 89%. What actions are the parish council going to take to inform residents of the pending increase, which will be from when, Amy? First of April?
Yeah, the new financial year.
I mean, it's going to be a bit of a shock when they get it in the post, isn't it? To some people in the village. Well, maybe to all people.
It is indeed. There was a proposal to issue an information leaflet to the residents of the village that is subject to the decisions of the new council. So we wait to see it. I would say on that at the initial hearing of the judicial review, full costs were awarded to the council, which would be summarily assessed, so that the full cost of the hearing would not fall upon residents. However, as you know, it's the judicial review has been applied for a renewal, which means the whole case has to be heard again, and that is currently underway. There is a date for that, which is the end of March, and the current position of the council is that it will attend that hearing, and the council have been instructed accordingly. The protection request and the cost protection order that was requested by Councillor Amber, the claimant, was rejected by the initial judge. So I would expect that the council would fulfil its financial duty to recover costs if it is successful. If it is not successful, then clearly those costs will fall upon the residents.
But they still, sorry just for that, but the budget's set now from April for a 12-month cycle, so that increase will go through
It will go through.
irrespective of if we get it. So
It will go through.
we do need to inform the residents that this is coming.
Absolutely. The motion to increase the amount was on the proviso that should the council win its defence of the judicial review and that it does not go to a full hearing, then that money will be returned at the following precinct setting, which will be the following year. So there's a reduction in the council tax on that level. Any further questions from anybody?
Yes, please.
Yes.
I noticed that the last one item on your agenda tonight is to review the public participation arrangements. Is there any reason or any edict somewhere that I'm not aware of that means that the public participation of these meetings cannot be part of the Zoom streaming or you let the public see? Because there are some people who can't come to the meetings and all they get is from the beginning of the meeting. They can hear the answers to questions that have been put, but they haven't heard the questions put because they haven't heard it coming from people like me at the moment. Is there a reason that you cannot do this, or can you change it?
Could I simply say that I am going to, as chairman, I'm going to move that item to the front of the agenda, so it'll be the first thing that will be discussed.
Right, okay.
So your
Right.
point is noted, and I'm sure councillors will take it on board.
Right. Well, I'd like you to consider that, if you can.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I'm sure we will. Thank you. Any other questions from anybody? Okay, we'll move on to the next item, which is apologies for absence. No other apologies.
I'll double check.
Okay, moving on to declarations of interest. Can I go around the table and ask for declarations of interest, please?
No. None. However, I do want to put on record that before I was a councillor, I signed in support of proceeding with a judicial review, and I put my name forward for Boost. Boost now doesn't exist and is gone, so I have no declarable interests in anything that would get in the way of me pragmatically and objectively looking at all of the information and forming a decision.
Thank you for that. Anybody else? Councillor Allen.
Judicial review.
Councillor Stead.
Nothing that I consider is relevant to tonight's agenda.
Okay, I don't have any registrable interest, but I think, following on Councillor Wilson's statement, now is the correct time to review the interest before we move later in the agenda to the item concerning the judicial review and the proposed composition of the JR committee. I'd like to ensure that we properly address any potential interests under clause 7 and 8 of the Code of Conduct. This matter concerns ongoing litigation with potentially significant financial and reputational consequences for the council and for a third-party organisation. In circumstances such as these, it is especially important that the council is not only compliant with the code, but is also seen to be scrupulously transparent and to conduct its business in a way that would not reasonably raise concerns in the mind of a fair-minded member of the public. Given the history of this issue, including prior involvement by some members in related organisations and public support for the judicial review application, I believe it is appropriate that we expressly consider whether any interests arise under the code. In particular, Clause 8 requires disclosure where a matter affects the financial interest or well-being of a body in which the member has a role or other registrable interest, and Clause 9 requires members to consider whether a reasonable member of the public, knowing all the facts, would believe that such an interest might affect their view of the wider public interest. Accordingly, I respectfully ask again whether any member currently holds or has recently held any office, trusteeship, committee position, formal role, or of a registrable position with any organisation that is competing for the assignment of duties, and whether such or any similar organisation would stand to benefit financially or operationally if the assignment was squashed. I would also like to ask whether any member considers that their prior formal involvement in or public support for the judicial review proceedings engages Clause 8 or Clause 9 of the Code, particularly in relation to the financial well-being of anybody connected to those proceedings. Given that the claimant in the judicial review is now a serving councillor, I believe it especially important that we explicitly consider whether any interests under Clause 8 or Clause 9 in relation to this item exist. So I would just ask again, for the record, are there any interests to declare?
Can I just make a comment on that? I think it's a good point that I'm aware, Councillor Artis, that you were warned by the clerk back in September 2024 that due to actions that you could potentially be held liable personally for court and legal costs. So I think that includes you as well. If we're going to have full
I
disclosure.
have no idea what you're talking about.
Oh, I've got it in writing. I can show it to you.
Well, you'll have to show me at some stage in the future.
Well,
So I would ask
it's
again.
in writing. It was in an email to you in September 2024. So
I would ask
I'm
you.
very happy to
Thank you very much.
provide you the evidence.
Please do.
Well,
So if there's no conflict, and I thank you very much for that, having given that consideration. For completeness, I will ask that each member's consideration of clauses 8 and 9 and their conclusions be minuted, and so that there's a clear and transparent record that the code has been expressly addressed. Do you have any opinions, Clark?
Can I ask, before we review membership to this,
Yeah.
can the clerk or yourself tell us exactly on all of these committees exactly who the membership consists of?
Yeah,
Because
I've got it. It is.
obviously your
We will
website is not up to date.
No, it's not. But when we're on that item, I'll say who's on
Good.
it now before we make decisions. That's fine. I mean, regarding the interests, I've spoken to you both. I think I've made my position clear. I do think it tips over into an interest. Ultimately, it's not a legal position. These are interests that are internal governance. So ultimately, it is your judgment call to ensure that you're not biased in your decision making. So
Okay, if I can just make a point on that.
sure.
What we're doing tonight is possibly adding to a committee. We're not talking about the judicial review itself. We're adding membership to it, which in my view doesn't.
No,
That
I think
doesn't come
the
under.
item in itself is not that problematic because it's just adding people, but it's
Moving forward, yeah.
it's the potential of the people joining maybe being conflicted. That's the issue rather than the actual, it's just adding people.
Sure.
Thank you for that.
Need us to answer.
And given the sensitivity and potential financial implications of this matter, in order to protect the council and individual members, I propose that we defer this item pending the clerk obtaining written legal advice specifically on the application of clause 8 and 9. Now, I appreciate it might be difficult for me to find a seconder for that, but I'll ask anybody if they want to second that motion just to defer that particular item until proper legal advice has been obtained. Is there any seconder?
You said that you gave advice.
Yeah.
And where did that advice, was that your own personal opinion, or have you received advice from the monitoring officer or the EFC?
So it's based on conversations I've had with the monitoring officer previously, but this was before they were elected. So I've asked again for her opinion, and she hasn't come back to me yet. She's very busy at the moment. The EALC, the trouble is it's not a legal position because the only interests that are in law are pecuniary interests, and clearly it's not a pecuniary interest. So the position will be it's not illegal. That will be the answer from legal advice. So it's the monitoring officer who would be the authority, because this is a code of conduct issue rather than a legal issue. So I'm waiting for more information from her. But yes, but ultimately it is a council's decision.
Well, I can answer for myself.
Sure.
I have nothing financial to gain. I'm not involved in the booth as I sit here right now. I've declared exactly my position, and I'd simply like to move forward and try and find a resolution for the village. I have the ability to be completely objective, and I don't believe I'm conflicted in any way against all of the code of conduct, and I've reviewed it backwards and forwards, and Amy, we've had a discussion separately about it, and I've listened to the advice, and I don't believe that there's an issue.
Okay, fine. That's fine. That's your decision.
If I may add to that,
it's just being recorded. That's all.
I have no intention to add to that committee anyway, so I won't be conflicted.
Okay. So clearly I don't have a seconder for that motion, therefore the proposal fails. So for the avoidance of doubt, the fact that the code has been expressly considered by members and the statement under clause 8 and 9 will be recorded in the minutes, we proceed to the remainder of the meeting. Thank you. We can now move on. And just for the record, I would like all votes recorded this evening. Okay. So can we now then move to the point that was raised earlier, which is about the public participation. I'll open that up for discussion. Can we just go around the table one at a time? Councillor Webb.
I like the participation of the public, and I think they should be allowed to say, in an orderly fashion, obviously. So I'm all for going back to the original statement.
Okay.
And I totally endorse that.
I completely agree.
Councillor Apple.
I'd like to discuss the potential of going one step further, and I know that some councils have public participation at the beginning and the end of a meeting, and I'd like to discuss that because I think that's quite a good option, because one of the questions I've had is that people ask questions in the public participation but they never get answers. So I'd like to suggest that if we can, that we have a short public participation towards the end of the meeting, wherever is a relevant place, and then at the next meeting we discuss the questions with responses at the beginning of the meeting.
Thank you.
I would prefer to be back to our usual session. I do pick up on Maureen's point though that we need to address our recording, making things open. I don't know if there is a way that the public participation session can be opened up, or if there is a legal reason that we can't do that. I would be very keen to make that much more open. And actually, yeah, the short session at the end could be relevant because questions naturally arise as we're sitting here. So I would be open to that too.
Can I just say, I also have no objection to the reverting back to the public session. What I would say is I think the composite situation seems to work, which whereby questions can be written in and answers given, but then the floor is opened up to the public. As the point about recording the public session, personally, again, I have no objection to that, although I think for legal reasons we would have to ask the public before the meeting started whether they would object to being recorded.
Yeah.
In which case I have no objection to that either. And I also have no objection to a quick session at the end of the meeting if time allows, bearing in mind the meetings are limited to a certain period. So the proposal is, as far as I understand it, to have a hybrid system, which is written questions followed by public participation face-to-face. The recording of the public session subject to permission being granted by the public themselves.
Yes, this item's only a discussion, so we'd have to do the formal decision.
Okay,
But we're already doing that.
we're already doing that anyway.
This could be
It says to consider. So.
Yeah, become a motion for that.
Okay. I'm sure we can implement it anyway as a matter of course, and also to have a session at the end. No problem with that at all. questions on, 20 minutes long.
It's literally just we cap the time from standing orders, that's it. So
Yeah.
especially if we've got a particular meeting.
So perhaps, I mean, I'm sure we can adopt that at the next meeting.
Or perhaps could somebody move to the clerk's correspondence?
I suppose, I mean, up to now, we've not come anywhere near 15 minutes. This is our minutes, so I don't think it's a realistic.
Yeah.
As I said, I think we can adopt that as a matter of
Yeah, it's not.
principle.
It's not a financial.
But if we need to have a motion to do it, then perhaps somebody will propose it for the next meeting. But in the meantime, if I'm sharing that we will adopt that, please. Okay. The next item, which I wanted to move to the front, is the March meeting schedule. And we have, it's obviously on there for a reason. The meeting was set up by Councillor Fisher and Councillor Angler, so can I ask the proposer is to,
I'm the proposer.
Are we now on to the 18th of March? Is this what we're voting on?
I would like to propose that the meeting is moved to the 18th of March.
That's Wednesday also.
Does anyone have a second that?
Yeah,
That's what I just need to check it out.
Yeah, it should be okay.
I'm okay for that. So we have a proposer being Councillor Ambler, seconder Councillor Steadman. All those in favour? Passed unanimously. Thank you very much. Now can we move to committee working group memberships? The motion is to review memberships of the following committees and working groups. First of all, we have the HR Personnel Committee.
So currently on that is Councillor Strutt and Councillor Hunt. Councillor Douglas.
Can I ask who wanted this on the agenda to start the discussion, please?
Well, in terms of, obviously the committee is in quorum, and I'm very happy, I've got a lot of experience with HR and personnel, so I'm very to put myself forward for that committee. Quite happy to do so.
Yeah, I was on it. I was on it before.
Before you were rejected, I think.
Objected to.
Rejected.
I rejected. I was rejected.
I know.
Not only on that.
I know.
Others as well.
Okay, so what have we got a proposal for?
Anybody else?
I don't mind, I can come as well.
I was going to say, to be respectful, I think it ought to be a discrete committee, not too many. I mean, I don't care who it is, but it can't be all the council.
That would be fine, and if there was something tonight, Councillor Strutt, Councillor Hunt not here, so we'd still be quorum, so would that be fine, be sensible
So,
number?
so I've got Councillor Strutt, Councillor Hunt.
Yeah.
Who else was?
Well, if we decide as a group that it's 5 or 4.
It's four. The last comment. There's no.
Darren on another, so that's myself, Kerry, and, or Chris, whichever one, I don't know. Whoever's got more experience will make more sense. I don't know. I mean, there's quite a few committees to go through, so from my point of view, that's my personal experience, so it makes more sense for me. I don't know about you guys, I can't speak for you.
Well,
Well,
Chris
there'll
isn't
be
it?
three. If he goes on it now, there'll be three.
if I can come in on this. Obviously, this to me is a very important committee, and our neighbourhood plan has been fairly stagnating for 9 months. We last had a steering committee meeting actually a year ago, so getting it up and running to me is vital, because that can make a big difference, not so much now to the housing that's going to be built in this village, because I think that's almost a done deal, but it will make a big difference to the sort of money that will come in. And if I can say on one site alone, having an neighbourhood plan to not having a neighbourhood plan made will make a difference of about £80,000 that will come into this parish council. And that to me is now all about getting on with it and getting it done as quickly as possible. And for that reason, I would like to consider, because at the moment, if I remember rightly, Councillor Strutt is in the chair on that committee, is he not?
Yes.
Well, I'd like to see that changed to me.
Is that something that the council can do, or usually committees select their own chair?
Well, they do. If you look, one of the problems is there's a selected chairman, but within the standing orders, or even its own rules and regulations of that committee, there's no way to remove a chairman. So that really needs to happen here.
As a general rule, full council would trump the committee decision anyway. So I don't Councillor Strutt
So could we have a proposal as to what the composition of that committee should be?
I'm assuming that Councillor Fisher, you're putting yourself forward.
I certainly am, yeah. So I'll propose it.
So Councillor Fisher as chair of the
Chairman.
committee. So then we still have Councillor Strutt, Hunt, Steven and Webb. So there's still space for others.
Can I just ask a question? In that we've got the neighbourhood plan steering committee, the neighbourhood plan working group, and the planning working group. Are they? Can you be on all three of those, or like, does it make sense? Is there a reason? Do we need three?
So the reason to have a working group is because it's more informal. So that's useful for drafting the actual plan. You can have more informal discussions, whereas the committee can be delegated financial powers and things like that. The planning working group is entirely separate. That's meant to be just for planning applications.
Local planning.
Yeah, so it is a separate sort of focus. I don't think there's a conflict in being on all of them.
With the working group, can we open that and ask members of the public to get involved?
That's the main difference, is that generally you can invite the public on to come.
Can I just interject there? Really, the working group, which, as far as I know, again, looking at the website, there isn't a working group, there's no members.
Because we needed a meeting to.
The terms of engagement for the steering committee is to form a working group or groups. And I'd like to see it done by the steering committee. Because then obviously we can get members of the public in. And obviously, even with the steering committee, one of the very first things we're going to do is get certain members of the public in. That's what I want to see happen.
Today you could do that. You can add people onto the working group as you go along. It's not super formal.
Sorry, numbers, we don't need to discuss that here.
No, you can just say.
So we can vote the steering group.
And then they can.
Absolutely.
Steering committee.
Yeah,
So
Absolutely.
and then leave that. Yeah, no, I'm happy to.
So I have a proposal of Councillor Fisher as chairman.
And who are the
Is that,
committee members?
that's proposed and seconded by
Councillor Strutt, Arters. I'm sorry, not Arters.
I'm on.
Councillor Strutt, Hunt, Steven and Webb. So that would be 5 people. Which is a good one.
So can we have a proposal for that? I think you've proposed it, seconded. By Councillor Webb. All those in favour? Thank you very much. That's passed. The neighbourhood plan working group, you said you were going to deal with yourself through the committee. Is that
Correct. Well, not myself, the group,
The group.
the steering
I
group.
think that was in terms of reference, wasn't it? For the working, the steering committee. We'll pick it up at committee.
The next one is the planning working group, which, as you said, deals with local planning applications rather than the committee.
So that's currently Councillor Arters, who's chair, and Councillor Strutt.
one more on that. Councillor Fisher.
If I may say, I'd like to see two more on that.
I was going to ask a question, if I may. You stepped away from the neighbourhood plan because you're on the CIC.
Yeah.
Would that not apply to the working group also?
No, this is for things like extensions and tree applications and things like this.
So the planning working group doesn't have any remit at all to meet with any developers?
No. No, it doesn't. I don't think so.
Because if it does, then it would obviously be appropriate for you to step away.
It would only be conflicted if the CIC put in a planning application, then that would be a conflict. So it would be a good idea to have at least 4 to allow for that scenario.
So at the moment we've got, who's put in
So we've got Councillor Artis and Strutt already on there.
Yeah.
Councillor Fisher has volunteered, so it would be ideal to have 1 more just to allow for that.
So we had
4 or 5?
So that's then 4.
I think it's always good to have an odd number of them.
It's not as crucial because it's,
We need to make it 5.
Yeah, I think my numbers are good.
Yeah, that's not a massive committee, is it? So,
No.
yeah, no, I'll have to go on there, that's fine.
So we have Artis, Strutt, Fisher, Stedman, and Amber. All those in favour? Fisher, Councillor Fisher was proposing it, Councillor Stedman was seconding. All those in favour? Thank you. Done. The next one is the Village Green Committee. I would just pose to the meeting whether there is actually a need for a Village Green Committee, but bearing in mind Village Green currently is not in possession of the...
My thoughts were, same as yours, is it still needed? If anything is needed, can it not just go through full council?
that would be,
I think that the group, to be fair, I think it's on the website, so we need to address it.
So,
Yeah.
so can we agree to formally dissolve the Village Green Committee? All those in favour? I'll propose it. Councillor Stedman, all in favour? All in favour, that's...
I would like to say that one first.
Okay, and the last one is the Judicial Review Committee. Again,
Can I just interject, just before we get into the Judicial Review Committee? It says to consider the creation of a Highways Road Safety Committee or working group. There was actually a Highways working group with that sort of remit put into place at the May 25 meeting. The people were myself, Councillor Webb, Councillor Riddle and Councillor Brown. I stepped away, so I believe that still just leaves Councillor Webb. We have, as we know, some highways issues, speeding issues and road safety issues ongoing. I would like to see whether we could get a working group together to address those issues and get them moving. And Councillor Artis, could we just move that forward on the agenda and leave the judicial review?
yeah, I'm happy to do that. Yeah. We'll discuss it now then.
I think I've said it, haven't I?
yeah, so just Councillor Webb on it at the moment,
Yeah.
but you can just...
I'm happy to go back on.
So we have
I'll go back on.
so we have Councillor Webb, Councillor Stedman.
No, I need to go on to that as well, make it 3 minutes. Is there someone else on it? Is it? So I think we should have, yeah, so 3. I think committees, it's always good to have an odd number.
Can I propose that then?
Councillor Stedman, seconded by Councillor Wilson. All those in favour? It's unanimous. Okay. Just going back to the last one then, which is the...
Sorry, can I just ask a question? Obviously, we don't have anything in relation to the recreation grant.
No, there's never been a committee.
No, because I'm
It's in Cora, so you need some people on
Yeah,
to
definitely.
try and
Who is on there now?
So it's just councillor Artis at present.
Okay.
We tried to make it for a couple of meetings ago, but there were no volunteers.
I'll put myself forward.
That's welcome, thank you. One more, perhaps?
We need one more.
I'm neutral, so I can go on it.
Yeah.
Councillor Steadman, so it will be the addition, the proposal is, and I'm quite happy.
Anybody else?
Chris is always staying well away from it.
I'm staying away.
Let's keep it.
You're with me there.
Okay,
No, but you know, just.
the proposal is then that councillors Steadman and Wilson are added to the JR committee.
Should there not be one more on the basis that it then falls in Cora again if one of us is not here?
I mean, we can do, it's just,
It's
it's whether you
it's
want to.
never been a problem.
I mean, a lot of it is sort of liaising and things like that, rather than having received anyone.
You don't officially meet in here anyway, do you? So it's a question of when three people can get together.
Yes.
So that's fine.
Well, I'm quite happy to propose that to encourage you to be on the committee. Okay, all those in favour, please? Okay, unanimous, thank you very much. And the final item on the agenda then is to note the election of 2 new councillors and complete the declarations of office, which you can do after the
They've
meeting.
been completed already.
They've completed the meeting. Therefore, thank you very much for attending, everybody. I close the meeting at 8:06. Open